Big ups.
Welcoming Kyle Madson. We'll show Kyle our new 3D rock form head that we have here. How great is this, Kyle, huh?
That is the ultimate gift this holiday season.
Why are you back in the 95.7 broom closet?
I got demoted.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Did Heather finally kick you out? Yep, I've been waiting for this.
You call this a broom closet. I call it a bedroom.
Oh, man.
Yeah. This is a desk/bed.
I'm sorry,
depending on whether there's a blanket on it.
Hey, man, we all been there.
Who among us, right?
Yeah, you can always come hang out here. I mean, I knew it was inevitable. I actually got this. I got this bigger house because I was just like, at some point, Heather's going to come to her senses, and Kyle's going to need a place to stay.
Very nice.
So look, Kyle can't get my couch over there.
That's it. Well, one more delivery to your house.
I don't want your couch.
You're very much going to need it.
I got my own spot over there because I've been threatened to get kicked out if these shoes keep coming to my house. It's like, one more, you're gone.
It happens.
Oh boy.
And I can't.
What did you think? Just as we get you into the and I promise we'll keep you updated on anything that may or may not happen with the Sacramento Kings. James is going to join us coming up here in a little bit as well. What did you think of the play calls last night from the Chargers on the constant going for it on fourth down and trying to get touchdowns instead of field goals?
I think that against the Chiefs, you have to try and get 6 points instead of 3 points. So it's the process over the results, right? Like it's not like the Chargers stink. The Chargers have a good offense. So if you're inside the 10 or inside the 5 or wherever they were, and you're trying to get a first down or a touchdown, like go for it, man. I mean, you have a couple plays, like a couple bounces of the ball go your way. If they had kicked the field goals and ended up losing by 2, you go, oh, well, they were inside the 5 and had a fourth down and they didn't go for it. It's just a classic. Like I said, it's process over results. And I think if Brandon Staley had the opportunity to do those things again, he would try and score touchdowns again.
Understandably, I get that. Technically, if they would have kicked the field goals, they would have won.
Maybe. You don't know how the Chiefs play it. The points add up, right?
Without the field goals.
Yeah,
the only thing that changes is you get the points instead of not getting the points.
Okay, but maybe instead of Austin Eckler fumbling at the goal line, was it Austin Eckler that fumbled at the goal line?
I think it was the backup.
Josh Kelly or whatever his name is. Instead of a fumble at the goal line, maybe they kick a field goal and the Chiefs go down and score a touchdown instead of throwing an interception. It's just like you just never know how a game plays out after that. So, but you're right. Like the points add up to, what was it, 9 that they could have had, and they get a W. But I like the idea of trying to punch the Chiefs in the mouth. That's what you got to do.
Like I can hear the argument for pretty much all of them. The one that I for sure would have changed was before the half. Like just take the points before the half.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But if you're looking at it over the course of, because people say, I think we need to stop saying, well, the analytics say it's the history, because that's what the analytics are. It's teams score X amount of points in this situation and they win X amount of the time in this situation by going for it versus not. And that's what they're kind of looking at. It's data sussed out over, decades, not just this one situation. So I didn't like the play calls.
I didn't like the play calls. Like go to the sticks, turn around. Like I didn't like that. Like run a regular play. Like
yeah, that's fair. You can quibble with the play call for sure.
Kyle Madson, the Prince of Niners Wire, the host of Candlestick Chronicles. By the way, you and Benedict Peterman hosted your 300th episode. Yeah. Congratulations on that, man.
300 things.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like you start a podcast with a buddy of yours and you're like, okay, well, we'll kind of see if this takes off. And it's just, I get an excuse to talk about the 49ers with a friend of mine who I talk about the 49ers with anyways. It's great. It's really, really fun. It's one of my favorite things to do, just behind this hit.
And it's a good call right there. And it's one of my, it's by far my favorite 49ers podcast to listen to and one of my favorite podcasts, period. Tell me about the Falcons. I was sneaky surprised to realize they're 6-7. I haven't, like the Falcons to me don't feel like a good football team, but yet here they are, along with a large portion of the rest of the NFC in striking distance of a potential playoff spot.
the Falcons stink. Like, that's it. They stink. When you watch them, so before the Niners play a team, I don't go back and like watch all the team's games. I don't need to watch the all 22. I grab, 20 minutes worth of plays spanned out over a few games and just watch and see what they're good at and not good at. The Falcons aren't good at anything.
Oh,
like they're good at getting the ball to Cordero Patterson, who's a great playmaker, but their offensive line isn't very good. Matt Ryan's washed. Their defensive line isn't very good. AJ Terrell, their cornerback, is having a nice year. But Grady Jarrett's okay. Like, he's an interior defensive lineman. He's a good player for them. But I don't know what the Falcons are good at except for beating, like, really bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Panthers last week is maybe their best win of the year. They beat the Saints the day Jameis got hurt.
Matt Ryan threw for 190 yards last week.
Right. Like, I don't know what they're good at besides beating bad teams. And I don't think the 49ers are bad. So
okay.
That's what I've got for you. The Falcons stink. And if the Niners lose this, I've got questions.
Well, look, I said it earlier in the week, and I kind of stand by this. I think the Niners, after getting that win in Cincinnati, I think 9-8 gets in, especially with them holding pretty much all the tiebreakers. So essentially, you've got to beat the Falcons and the Texans at home to get into the playoffs. And if you can't do that, then you probably shouldn't be there anyway.
Yeah, I'm with that. Dude, it stinks. The internet connection in the closet isn't good.
That big money over there at 95.7 the game.
Because people are loud. So where were we at? The Falcons being six and the Niners losing. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the Niners need to win. They need to win those two games. And honestly, for me to go into the playoffs, like let's go to the world where the Niners make the playoffs, because I think they're going to. If they get to 9-8 by beating the Falcons and the Texans, and then they lose to Tennessee and they lose to LA, you're not going to feel great about them going into the playoffs. It's like, okay, cool, they made it, and maybe they upset somebody, but it's on the table where they beat Atlanta and then they go on a short week and beat the Titans. It's not going to be an easy game, but they can definitely do it. The Titans' offense is a mess right now. And then they beat the Texans. Well, now they've won 3 in a row. They're sitting there with 10 wins and going in to face a Rams team that they've beaten 5 times in a row. So all of a sudden, when you start looking at the playoffs and you go, okay, well, there's no real good teams. You just need to be a team that's playing well or hitting their stride or hitting their peak at the right time. The Niners have a chance to be one of those teams. But again, they have to beat the Falcons, I think, handily. And then they have to go on a short week and beat Tennessee. And then they got to take care of business against the Texans. And then, we'll see what happens in a division matchup against the Rams.
And in that scenario too, Kyle, if that played out, what would that be, like 8 of 9 wins? 7 of 8, something like that. Like when you bring it back out to the Bears, or even you can go to the Bears game, it would be like 9 of 11. They've won 9 of their last 11 or something like that. Like if you go to the Bears game. So that'd be crazy.
But they're still 7-6 right now. That's what they're 7. Is that like legitimately what they are? Are they overachieving? Are they underachieving? Or are the 49ers, at least at this point, are they just an average football team?
So they're 7-6 because they started 2-4. And in those 4 games, they had 7 giveaways and 4 takeaways in 6 games. I think they have 12 takeaways. They've won 5 out of their last 7. They have 12 takeaways in those games. So I think that's just kind of what it is. They're getting better quarterback play. They're getting takeaways. They're not giving the ball away. And that allows them to get into the formula that we know they're good at. It's a good pass rush. It's playing from ahead. It's running the football effectively. And that formula works for them. That's how they're built. That's their identity. And I think that's kind of what's happened. So, Damian, to your point, they're 7-6, but over the last 7 weeks, over the last half a season, they've looked more like the team that we thought they were going to be to start the year. Now, if you flipped it and said they were 7-6 and they started 5-2 and have gone 2-4 since and kind of looked the way they looked in the beginning of the year, you'd feel a lot differently about that 7-6. But they're playing well at the right time. The question now is, can they continue doing that over how long in the playoff? It's 4 weeks left, and then it'd be 4 playoff games. Can they do that for 8 more games? That's the question.
Yeah. I was going to ask this question to Damien, but we got the Prince of Niners Wire in the building, man. So there's no better person to ask about this, and I'll still ask you too, Damien. What do you think the ceiling is realistically for the 49ers? Everybody knows I love the Niners. I love them. I want them to win. I love a Super Bowl go-tos, go on a run and all this other stuff. If I'm being truthful for everybody, I think their ceiling, from what I've seen from them this year, is one playoff win. I'd be surprised if they got more than one. It doesn't mean they can't, but you go in there, you win that one playoff game, you feel good, and it feels like that divisional round, you kind of snap back to reality a little bit. What do you think the ceiling is, the realistic ceiling is for this team?
I think that's probably about where I'm at. I don't think I'd be comfortable, like if you're betting on them, I don't think I'd be comfortable betting on them in a divisional round game. But it also lays out where, again, and you said realistic. So I think I agree with you, Kenny, kind of everything you said. But if there's a scenario where, like I was listening to James Jones, former Packers receiver, on a podcast, and he was talking about how if he's the Packers, like the Niners are the one NFC team he doesn't want to face because defense travels, that run game travels. And if they just shorten the game and give you 5 offensive possessions because they're just churning clock and they're running the ball down their throat, that's where things get kind of interesting. And if you came from the future and said, hey, the Niners went on a run to the NFC Championship, I'm not going to call you a liar, because you can see where that would line up.
Right.
Okay, they get the Cardinals and DeAndre Hopkins is out or he's banged up, and then they get the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy's a disaster. So they played Green Bay well earlier in the year. They've owned the Rams lately. Like there's all these scenarios that you can play out, but realistically, if they win a wild card game, I think it's really hard for this team and just kind of where they're at to string good games together against playoff caliber teams. That's the big problem I see. Like, can they beat one of those teams ahead of them in a one-off? Sure. But can they do it 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row? I'm not buying that with this year's team.
So if I was Damien from the future and I was here at the NFC Championship game right now, and I'm calling you like, Kyle, Kenny, guess what? 49ers made it to the NFC Championship. How would they get there? Like, what is their, like you talked about it, things lining up right. You laid out the schedule, but what would they have to do to exceed what Kenny's ceiling thinks, or what Kenny thinks their ceiling is?
They would have to run the ball super effectively. Like they'd have to be going 150 plus yards a game, I think, and just making it easier on Jimmy Garoppolo. Now we saw against the Bengals when Deebo Samuel's on the field and George Kittle's on the field and Brandon Ayuk is on the field, we saw how good they can be. If you add Elijah Mitchell into that mix, who I think is their best running back right now, that becomes a really hard offense to stop. And as bad as they were against Seattle with making mistakes, the offense still moved the ball. They still went at like 6.5 yards per play, which would by far lead the league if that was their season mark. So the offense has been really good. I think to get there, they would continue needing not turn the ball over, generate a couple turnovers on defense, and then just get behind the running game and make life easy on Jimmy Garoppolo, where he can just get it to George Kittle and get it to Deebo Samuel. And I mean, the game-winning touchdown against the Bengals is a great example of that's just a play action bootleg back across and find a playmaker and let him make a play. And Ayuk did that. So that's, I mean, the formula that we saw them beat the Rams and then the Jags with in those consecutive games, and then the Vikings, that's how those games would have to go. Yeah.
And what's funny to me, Casey, from a neutral perspective, none of that seems outrageous to me, because it feels like it's stuff that we've seen, but it doesn't feel outrageous.
Right. So the thing that feels outrageous to me when I kind of look at it is teams are going like teams are going to stack the box. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to make some throws. Like, okay, like, can he? Yeah. Do you trust him to do that? Like I said, 4 games in a row, 3 games in a row, that's dicey. The other thing is when you look at this secondary, and Emmanuel Mosley being back would be a big deal, but when you just look at their secondary in general, going up against the receiving cores that they would be going up against in Green Bay or Dallas or Tampa Bay or LA or Arizona, it's like my biggest question would be like, what are they doing defensively that you would figure like Nick Bosa is just having like the run of his life, like he's just having an unbelievable stretch. That's kind of what I would think is happening defensively.
And it's interesting you bring that up, because I wanted to ask you, Kyle, or comment to you. I know how you feel about Josh Norman. And you're not wrong. As far as like his play, like not good. Secondary's not good. But I mentioned this after the win in Cincinnati. And I look at that defense and everybody that they have on it and just how they go about the game. And I said specifically, these guys are tougher than a $2 steak. Like they're not going to lose because they have a deer in the headlights look. They're going to lose because, somebody's just better that night. But they're going to come to play. They're going to come to compete. And it's really weird because I agree with you the same way as Kyle's getting packages in the middle of the, it's just crazy. Man's getting packages in the middle of the interviews. I don't know what's going on. But I agree with you where I would want a better secondary. I'd want better cornerbacks and all this other stuff. But the defense hasn't been that bad this year. Like they hadn't been just eviscerated by anybody. They've all, considering the offense turns the ball over so much or whatever the case may be, defense hasn't been that bad. What do you think about just this? We know they're not the most talented defensive unit, but just coming to play and having this group out there every Sunday.
So I think a lot of that has to do, like we saw, there's just flashes from several games that really jump out when I say I'm worried about the secondary. Because you're right, like the defense has overall been like pretty good. The pass rush has been good, and they've been opportunistic, and they could easily be like a bottom 5 defense with some of the personnel they've rolled out, but they kind of continue to just make plays. But a few things stand out to me. The second half of the first game against Seattle, where they just kind of got torched. The Green Bay game, I know Green Bay only scored 28, but Devontae Adams, the way that game ended, it's just like bang, bang. Like they just had no answer. Not that really any team has an answer for Devontae Adams, but Aaron Rodgers missed a couple of throws in that game that could have made it pretty ugly. You saw Gerald Everett last week turn the ball over 3 times, twice at the goal line, where it could have been a lot worse. Kirk Cousins missed a lot of throws against the 49ers. So there's like just a lot of things that stick out where it's like, man, and quarterbacks will miss throws in the playoffs, but that's my biggest concern is like they are a couple throws away in several games from really getting blown out. So that's why I'm concerned. I'm not saying that they can't win games because of that, but when you start saying like, all right, why can't they win a divisional playoff game? That's kind of the first thing I point to is you could easily see them going to Dallas in the divisional round and Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb just getting whatever they want.
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah.
Kyle Madson with us here on D'Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320. What was the situation with D Ford this week? So he's done for the year, but they made no decision on him next year, and he's not owed any money. Is that right?
So he's not owed any guaranteed money. There would still be a little bit of a dead cap hit to cut him next year, but it wouldn't be nearly as expensive as it would be to do it this year. He could retire, which changes how much money they would be on the hook for. And I think that's the route he's going to go. So they opened his practice window 21 days ago Wednesday. That's so when a player goes on IR and you want him to return, you open his practice window, they get 21 days. If you don't activate him at the end of the 21 days, they're done for the year. They stay on IR. So that's what happened with D Ford. They didn't activate him. And my guess is that the doctors cleared him and said, hey, he's good. Like there's nothing else we can do. Let's give it a shot. And he gave it a shot and his back just didn't hold up. And this is a back injury that he's been dealing with since college. So my guess is, and again, total speculation guessing, that they opened up that practice window. He gave it a shot. It wasn't going to work. And now he's going back to Kansas City to kind of continue doing offseason rehab. And I just don't think this is something the 49ers are going to want to deal with moving forward. Like they need to get healthy. And if they're going to build around their defensive line, they need to build around guys that are going to be there and be on the field. And D Ford, he played 18 games in 3 seasons. That's not a guy I think they're going to want to continue to pay. I think it's like 12 or 13 million. I could have that wrong, but they would pay him a lot to stick around next year. And I don't think they're going to do that.
He's played 18 games in 3 seasons, and one of them he played like 15 games. So
yeah,
like that's a lot. Look, D Ford, hey, I want these athletes to play as long as they can. I'm not praying for him, professionally to retire or whatever the case may be. But look, man, I need that cap space, okay? I need that cap space.
Kenny, would you do the DeForest trade again?
Yeah, they should have won a Super Bowl.
I agree. I'm with you.
Yeah.
He was when he was on the field, that defense was an all-timer.
Yeah.
He just wasn't on the field enough.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll hit you with one since we're doing. Would you do this? Would you do the Armstead deal again?
No.
Because Kyle, before you answer that, doesn't that mean Jimmy Ward might not be here?
No.
I thought that was I thought it was always presented as if they kept Buckner, they would only be able to keep him, and they'd have to let by signing Armstead, they were able to sign Armstead and Jimmy Ward.
So I think they could have made it work. They could have moved some money around elsewhere where they could have kept Buckner and Ward. But here's
I would have kept Buckner, by the way. I would have done.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Like, if Eric Armstead was going to give you 10 sacks a year, like, yeah, you do it. But he's shown that he's just kind of a guy. And not that he's a bad player. He is a good player on a team that can win a championship. Like, that's what Eric Armstead is. But do I want to pay that guy $20 million a season? Not even a little bit. So I say that to say, would you rather have Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward or DeForest Buckner? Like, that's an easy. Yeah, there's no players that they kept by trading DeForest Buckner and keeping Eric Armstead and whoever else. Nothing they gained from trading DeForest Buckner, the Colts wouldn't take any of it for Buckner straight across. Like, here, you can have Javon Kinlaw and Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward. Like, you can have all of it. Just give us DeForest Buckner back. There's no chance they're doing that. And I think the Niners, if they had it to do again, would not handle it the same way.
And they didn't use that pick right with what they got from DeForest. Like, Kinlaw hasn't been able to produce. He's a good ball player, but he can't stay on the field. So really doesn't matter. Speaking of staying on the field, before we let you get out of here, Kyle, real quick, who we got out there? Is Elijah Mitchell playing? Is Al-Shaair playing? What we got this week?
So the injury report just came out. Dre Greenlaw's out. Maurice Hurst is out. And Elijah Mitchell is out. But Shanahan said that he expects Mitchell to clear concussion protocol. So now he's dealing with a knee injury, which is what's keeping him out. And it's kind of interesting because they do have the game Thursday. So I'm wondering if, because they have that short turnaround, they're giving him some extra time. That'll be something worth kind of keeping an eye on. George Kittle is playing. He's not listed on the injury report. Azeez Al-Shaair is doubtful with an elbow injury. He didn't practice at all this week. And it's Jaquiski Tart and Ambry Thomas who's in concussion protocol. He's questionable. Tart's questionable. And DJ Jones is questionable.
My God.
But Jones practiced on Friday.
Health and safety protocols, boy, they come for the 49ers too. Okay, we'll let you go. What's your favorite Steph 3, by the way?
That's really tough. I've thought about it a lot, and I think the chalk answer is the one against OKC in 2016, the one in overtime.
Well, given the fact that that's how you announced your engagement, I feel like that's the proper answer.
That's just a great call. That's my favorite Mike Breen call. Honestly, the one that really jumps out was, remember Matthew Dellavedova was like the Curry stopper, right?
Oh yeah.
Curry hit him with this 3 in game 5 of that series, where he was on the right wing, and Mike Breen's call was crosses over, steps back, fires away. Wow. Because he just puts Dellavedova in a blender, and then he turns and looks at the crowd and like gives this mean ass face, like, this guy can't guard me. And that was just kind of the nail in the coffin for that series. And that's, I think, kind of my favorite, because that was what was like, oh, they're going to win their first game.
Kyle.
Oh, damn.
Okay. Well, thanks, Kyle.